Greetings and welcome to the Dr. Dave Vlog series. It is Sunday, January 4th, 2026, and this is the first official vlog of 2026. I posted on New Year's Eve, but here we are in 2026 proper. And so we're continuing the series on thoughts and reflections, and today's title is Becoming a Positive Person. So I think that's pretty straightforward, self-explanatory. And on balance, don't we generally prefer to be a happy and positive person rather than somebody who's sad or pessimistic? Don't we prefer calm and tranquility rather than being upset? I know I do. And yet we know it's virtually impossible to be constantly in a great or even a good mood, all the time with the many issues that we have to confront in our daily lives. But it can certainly be our dominant MO, can't it? Are you such a person? That is, are you such a person where your dominant MO is one who, you're a person who experiences the world as a pleasurable, desirable, generally happy place filled with possibilities? And that can be difficult, to be fair, right? In many situations, if you're living, I can't even imagine, living in a war zone on a day in, day out basis, or maybe more realistically, if you're confronted with a serious health issue or somebody you love's dealing with a serious medical problem. And there are certainly many situations then where we can well imagine that they would test the limits of even the most enlightened souls on the planet to maintain that sense of balance and happiness and calm. But setting aside for a moment those most difficult of circumstances, what about life in places like Canada and the US for the most part, assuming you have the necessities in place? Obviously, not everyone does. But can you imagine a situation where you basically feel like you're well taken care of and you can pursue your goals and dreams and you're living in mostly a reasonably safe and secure environment? Perhaps you're amongst the tens of millions of people in both of those countries, or perhaps living in another country for that matter, where you have health, you have adequate housing, enough money to live, if not in luxury, but just to live comfortably. And there are plenty of opportunities then to grow and develop and chase your dreams. And yet it's curious, to me at least, that there's so many people out there who may still be struggling for a variety of reasons, struggling with their mental health, with stress, anxiety, even serious depression, to say nothing of drug problems or a host of other conditions that can impede their abilities to lead a happy life. And I'm not even talking about those who are necessarily seriously struggling, right? Even on a day-to-day basis, it's remarkable to me how many people I encounter who rarely smile or genuinely want to engage you or in a positive way or have anything much to say. They might just simply want to retreat into their own worlds or ignore what's going on around them. And I get it to some extent, right? We all can't always be on and at our very best every moment of every day. And there are times when we all need a break from others or just, need to direct our energies inward, recharge our batteries, and deal with some of our more immediate problems. And I know for myself, there's still times where I just don't have the energy, the capacity, if you will, to engage others as I normally would like to. And sometimes we just need to, as I say, to be alone, to have some quiet time, etc. But what I'm talking about, though, is the ability to regularly engage others in a reasonably positive way. In our daily routines, in terms of going to work and running our errands or heading to the gym. We have so many encounters along the way. And at least for my money, I prefer to try to be, reasonably social and engaging and life affirming, etc. Right. And so I know, to be fair, a great many people who are that way. They're so positive. They readily smile. They readily talk to others in friendly and engaging ways. And my wife's, particularly amazing in that regard, as is my sister Lisa, just to name two. These are two of the best examples I have in my immediate sphere. My mother was that way too. But there are other friends that I have, and maybe you have as well. And sometimes they're partners who are remarkably congenial too, right? And a couple of people I've gotten to know at work and perhaps even just working at the cafeteria or at the local convenience store. You know the type of person I'm talking about, right? Those people in our lives that you run into whose basic approach involves engaging the world in a positive way, or dare I say, even shining their light as brightly as they can on a regular basis. And these are the people that I often, and maybe you as well, almost automatically look forward to seeing. Like just seeing them almost lifts my own spirits or brings a smile unconsciously without even thinking, which begs the question then, are you someone who's like that? Are you someone that people look forward to seeing? Do you tend to brighten up other people's days? Do you regularly shine the light of your soul and share your gifts? And if not, why not? What's holding you back? Perhaps you're a bit like me in the sense that, someone who's over the years, and certainly when I was younger, struggled a bit, where it doesn't come quite as naturally to be always as friendly or engaging as others. I've tried not to be a jerk over over the years, but occasionally I have been. But the point is that, for many of us, we might be a little bit more guarded based on our past experiences, based on traumas, based on any number of different conditions, just based on the kind of socialization, the family that we were reared in. So that said, I'm living proof, though, that it is certainly possible to change your life, to move forward in life and become someone who's more engaged and, dare I say, loving toward the world. I use the example specifically of hugging others because I was never a hugger. I didn't grow up in a family of big huggers. That's not something that we took naturally to, and we weren't naturally affectionate with one another. In fact, quite the opposite in many ways. There was a lot more fighting, people getting upset with one another, as opposed to sitting around laughing and hugging and giving positive reinforcement. And so I literally, over time, and as I became an adult, I had to learn how to hug people more regularly and more naturally. Just like I had to learn how to pick up babies when we first had them, because I hadn't picked up babies throughout all my life, quite frankly. And so, I had to learn. And that's true of hugging. And I learned a lot of that too from my lovely ex-wife, Kathy, and her family. They were such a family who could hug and show affection and care and call one another and be supportive, etc. And so that was a very positive learning experience for me, shall we say. And then even more so with my current wife and her family. And they provide such a beautiful example then of people who contact one another. Our mother-in-law is still alive, hopefully for a few more years at least. She's almost 98, or will be 98 this year. So inshallah, she'll make it to 100. We'll have a big celebration. But all the siblings and the extended family and so forth, and they're really a good example then of how to be, again, loving and supportive and hugging and all these sorts of things. Again, it's not that everybody's perfect, not that nobody ever gets has a disagreement or what have you. But the dominant MO is that of being a loving and supportive family towards one another. And it extends beyond that, right, to the extended family, to the friends, and much further. And so, I like this idea of being around life-affirming people, people who are more supportive of one another, as opposed to being, cynical or dismissive or simply ignoring one another. And so the funny thing is that I learned early in life the importance of at least being reasonably social and engaging and a more positive person, at least as part of the public persona, okay? More out of a sense of adaptability and perhaps more out of a sense of my own ego rather than out of a sense of genuine enlightenment, if that makes sense, all right? And so I just figured out basically how to play the game so that I could be reasonably successful within the different environments that I, moved within. And perhaps you've learned to do that as well. Regardless of your sort of core personality traits and so forth, most of us learn how to adapt to the situations and how to manage. And so what about you then and your life experiences and your family experiences? Ideally, of course, you would have had loving parents and siblings who set great examples. Not always the case, of course, right? And so we can see the effects then of these less than optimal childhood experiences or family circumstances that have resulted in a lot of mildly and in some cases seriously damaged individuals as adults. And so that's why I try not to judge people as best I can that I encounter. And I try not to judge them too harshly because of their inability to smile or to enjoy life all that much. Because in most cases, I don't know their backgrounds, the hardships, the traumas that they've encountered along the way. But I do notice if they're not able to smile often or to reciprocate the basic pleasantries. And I wonder about that. And again, I'm not talking about one-off situations, right? If somebody's just received terrible news or they're having a bad day. Rather, I'm talking about people who perpetually apparently have a real difficult time ever smiling or sharing and engaging in positive ways. And I suspect you might know some people like that. It could be someone like a neighbor. I've seen that right where I live, for sure. People at work, a coworker. And you just sort of wonder, they don't seem all that happy or friendly. And you don't know necessarily why. Now, if it's someone like that who's in your own family, you perhaps do know why, or at least there's chances are you have a better sense of the reasons of why they are the way they are. But it can still be difficult to deal with such a person. And then be honest with yourself. Are you such a person? Are you a person that people have a hard time dealing with? Turn the lens inward. I've been that person on occasion. I've had to look at certain things that have happened in the past, and or in relationships, and I basically had to ask myself, "Hey, Joe, why are you being such a jerk? Or why were you such a jerk or an a-hole in that context?" And at least, again, speaking for myself, I realized I don't enjoy being a jerk. I don't like being a jerk. If you don't perceive yourself as being a jerk, well, that could be part of the problem right there. But I certainly am well aware of the times that I've been a jerk. And I thought to myself, well, why not change that or try? Okay. And of course, that's easier said than done in many instances, but it can be done. And if you're genuinely committed to becoming a more enlightened person, then you'll perhaps be even more motivated then to try to change at least certain aspects of your approaches and your persona, etc. And the single biggest part, and it took me a long, long time to learn this, the single biggest impediment to change, quite frankly, is one's own ego, my own ego, your own ego, or at least the selfishness and the self-centeredness that so often consumes us as children and then sometimes continues to plague us in our many adult forms as well. So simply put, if you're genuinely committed to shining the light of your soul with others, you should be doing so, or you will be doing so, I should say, not because you hope to be popular or well-liked, because that's an ego-driven motivation. Rather, you can eventually learn to shine the light of your soul because that's the most meaningful thing you can even imagine doing in terms of directing your energies. Okay, so it's not about you or me. It's about we and what we can do with our gifts and with the light and the love that we've been granted. Even if you're not the Buddha, even if you're not the enlightened one, there's clearly times where you have acted in such a fashion, and perhaps, again, well beyond your own ego that you've been able to set aside, at least temporarily. You've probably, at least once in a while, taken that much broader view and done things, again, not for your own ego or your own well-being, but because you've come to understand in a deeper sense that that's the right thing to do or to be doing. And the right thing is that which generates, again, the most peace and harmony and well-being. You vibrate at a higher level and give off generically what we refer to as positive energy. I'll delve into that in much greater detail in another vlog. But, basically, when you vibrate at this kind of frequency, others will readily see and acknowledge this quite often. And if you're amongst those who are at least trying to wake up in this world, in this life, and if you're not too damaged, you'll almost instinctively be able to sense or see when people are giving off that positive energy. They might say nice things about you, right? And that's fine. I try to do the same. In other words, I quite enjoy saying nice things about others, giving positive feedback, etc. I wish I could do that all the time. But my point is that if you're going to be doing the right thing, not, again, because people are going to notice you and praise you or feed your ego or click like, or thumbs up on your vlog. You're doing so because you're doing what aligns most naturally and most harmoniously with the universe. Even at the smallest of levels, like not throwing your gum wrapper out of the car window. You know not to do that. Most of you won't do that. Wasting water by leaving the tap on and unattended. And 1,000 other things. It's not that we're perfect and we do everything right all the time, 24/7. I'm certainly not. I don't think you can be either, but rather you just develop the healthier habits, the life-affirming habits. And then in dealing with people, you learn the habits of sharing a smile, of saying hello to people, doing a good job at whatever your work is. We all have different jobs. Recycling, not because you want people to praise you or feed your ego. It becomes rather just who you are, your way of being, often without thinking. And even if you haven't figured out all of the answers to life's big questions or achieved some kind of ultimate state of nirvana, you can literally practice being and becoming every day. First, by consciously trying to live in harmony with yourself, with others, and with nature. By consciously identifying, too, your own kind of problem areas, your own blockages, the areas where you're a bit out of sync. I'm still doing that myself, right? And then working on how to best address those limitations, to let yourself flow forth more freely and more positively. And from a practical standpoint, there are many very specific daily practices that you can engage in, like smiling when you see people and shaking their hands, offering positive comments or other forms of positive reinforcement. Again, just simply saying hello, and as with hugging other people, something that, again, that I had to learn to do, you can get better and become more natural at these sorts of things. And ultimately, again, you can reach the point where you're doing things so naturally in terms of shining your light and vibrating at a higher frequency that you don't even really notice. You're not even consciously aware of that any longer. In effect, you become more post-personal and post-ego driven, or somehow you start to transcend the ego to embrace the world and your lived experiences at a completely different energy level. Okay? I'm not there yet by any stretch of the imagination, but I can say not out of a sense of pride or ego or hubris or bragging. I'm definitely much further along even than where I was, say, 5 to 10 years ago. And there's progress, right? We all can make progress. And I can feel that difference just in my very being and how I operate and how I vibrate. And what you'll notice is that you or I, as the ego or the specific self, starts to become less important in the grander scheme of things. Yes, we have to look after ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves. But perhaps ironically, that's mainly so that we can give ourselves away by shining our light and energy as brightly as possible with those whom we encounter, with the world that we encounter. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to ultimately give our lives and ourselves and our light and let that ultimately bleed into the fabric of the universal tapestry that exists. We are part of the whole. We are not separate from the rest, except when we start to privilege and prioritize our own egos. And so that's our challenge. I don't know if I've explained the concept all that well. It's just my simple way of trying to convey the challenge then of waking up and starting to move beyond your own ego to share your smile, to share your positive energy as much as possible, or to just start practicing and learning and moving in that direction. All right. So if you can, try to greet every day with a smile, with a sense of optimism. Try to be that positive person. Start becoming a more positive person. Work towards developing the healthy habits, not just to take care of yourself, but to evolve, dare I say, into the beacon of bright light and positive energy that you ultimately are. And eventually, you'll learn to start to forget your selfish self almost entirely. It's not something that you'll be striving to do. It'll just happen much more naturally, at least once in a while, and then more and more often. And, you'll start to trust and believe in not only yourself, but in other people. You'll be able to see the difference that you're making. Other people will notice you. They'll see you in a different light. The people, the animals, the flora and the fauna everywhere will be happy to see you. And I'm happy to see you, even virtually or metaphorically through this vlog series, okay? So that's it for today. As ever, may you and yours continue to create peace in your lives, nurture love in your hearts, and dole out hugs and abundance and vibrate at higher levels. We'll see you next time. Bye now.